When people consider a game to be broken, the game usually has to fit an arbitrary threshold of glitches or unbalanced mechanics that leads them to conclude that the game doesn't work like it's supposed to. And from one search on the YouTube search bar of Mario Kart Wii, one of the first videos you'll find, past the 4-hour long plays, is a video about the history of ultra shortcuts. Great. Making the case for Mario Kart Wii being broken is easy, because it is, but I find that making that case can lead people into having a shallow understanding or just incorrect impression of the game. And I guess it's not the end of the world. It isn't everyone's job to have a complete understanding of everything they find on the internet, but I do think that the number of people who just chalk this game up to being broken and leave it at that have a big misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding usually looks something like this. Mario Kart Wii is extremely one-dimensional. Everyone only ever uses the Flame Runner or the Mach Bike because every other vehicle isn't viable. The checkpoint system is complete jank and lets players bypass entire laps at their will, which destroys the purpose of there being a track. And when you do have to play, the items are so busted that it's just up to complete luck. To anyone who has said something along these lines, all it shows is that you're good at regurgitating the opinions of whoever you hear it from on the internet. So today, I'm dissecting these claims a little bit and shed light on reasons why Mario Kart Wii isn't as broken as you might think. If you get through the end of the video and you still think Mario Kart Wii is nothing more than a broken mess, then okay. To each their own, but we're going to go through each of these claims and try to show the nuance behind each one, or just refute them completely. Because really, Mario Kart Wii has a lot more to offer than people give it credit for. Funky Bike Wii is the nickname that a lot of people have given Mario Kart Wii because almost everyone uses Funky Kong on the Flame Runner. And yeah, there is quite a bit of Funky Kong. At high level play, the Flame Runner and Mach Bike are the most dominant, and you'll hardly ever see karts and never see outside drift bikes at all. This might lead you to believe that karts and outside drift bikes are unusable in this game. But I assure you, both of these vehicle types have their place. First, let's talk about karts. Have you ever been playing online and gotten beat by someone with 7K in their name? It's a karting clan that includes some really good kart players, most of which have time trial times better than yours and mine. This is a top 100 worldwide time, by the way, with the Flame Flyer and the Wii Wheel for style. The biggest criticism of karts in this game is that they just aren't fast enough to keep up with the competition, but clearly, given enough skill, karts can become good enough to play online. Now keep in mind, it takes a lot of skill. A large reason people use bikes in this game over karts is because bikes are so much easier to use. I don't think this gets talked about enough. People know bikes are the best vehicles, so they play with bikes and disregard karts, which can lead everyone to use bikes. And because of this, people forget what karts can do. So what can they do? Here's a few quick advantages that karts have over bikes. Karts can't get wheelie bumped. Karts can bounce off walls easier than bikes can. They're harder to snipe and avoid backspam easier because they sway back and forth. Karts can do the fast wheelie glitch without a wheelie, which isn't online play related, and we'll get to the fast wheelie glitch later. Do you know how many viable karts there are? The man who helped me get kart information for this video is Kanehesnowman, a prolific karter to say the least. And according to him, there are 8 viable karts for online play in this game. Keep in mind, this list varies from regular tracks to custom tracks, and for competitive play, the list shrinks significantly. Wild Wing, Flame Flyer, Mini Beast, Honeycoop, Manual Sprinter, Manual Blue Falcon, Automatic Jet Setter, Automatic Sprinter, Automatic Flame Flyer, Automatic Blue Falcon, and Manual Jet Setter. I bet some people would be surprised that the Jet Setter, often considered a terrible vehicle, is actually viable. But it's true. Given enough practice and with enough skill, karts don't suck. Oh yeah, let's talk about this video really quick. One of the reasons people give for Mario Kart Wii being broken is that inside drift is far too good. Inside drift definitely is good for bikes, but for karts, it would actually make them worse. To summarize one of Ryui's points in this video, karts get most of their viability from super mini turbos, and with inside drift, it makes it harder to charge them. Also, redrift is a thing. When a kart starts drifting, it actually gets a 50% drift bonus at the start of its drift, which is something that inside drift bikes don't get. This allows karts to use their sideways momentum and higher drift bonus at the start of each drift to maneuver through tight sections cleanly, like this clip from Ryumi's video. Just another way that karts stay viable in online play using methods that often get disregarded by the average viewer. Now, with that said, karts are still worse than bikes. Karts are difficult to control compared to bikes. They have janky physics on zippers and mushrooms and are still slower than bikes. But don't let that lead you to believe it's a blowout. Karts can compete in online play. Don't forget that. So what about outside drift bikes? Well, I can't say they're as viable as karts for online play, but time trials are where they shine. For most of the game's history, outside drift bikes didn't have a place in any form of play. But since the new discovery of the fast wheelie glitch, they've found their place. I won't explain to you what the fast wheelie glitch is in this video, but I'll put a link to a video explaining it in the description below. Unfortunately, I don't know of anyone who plays exclusively with outside drift bikes, so if you want to say that they aren't valuable online, be my guest. I don't have anything to say against that. But you can't ignore the fact that all three vehicle types, inside drift bikes, outside drift bikes, and karts, all have their own level of viability somewhere in Mario Kart Wii. So to the point of the vehicle roster being unbalanced in favor of inside drift bikes, all I have left to say is this. Even if it's not apparent from afar, every vehicle type has a place in this game, and if you can't see that, you just haven't looked hard enough. Ultra shortcuts are probably the #1 reason people call Mario Kart Wii broken. I know the title of this video is Mario Kart Wii Isn't Broken, but in this aspect, it undeniably is. So instead of trying to claim that ultra shortcuts aren't broken, I'm going to show you how they have very little effect on gameplay outside of time trials. When playing online Mario Kart Wii today, it just straight up isn't possible to do ultra shortcuts online. If you're using Wheelie, which pretty much everyone who wants to play online today has to use Wheelie, you won't be able to do ultra shortcuts. They're patched out. So that's nice. Any other shortcut is fair game, but ultra shortcuts are gone. But what about when they weren't? Before the 2014 Wi-Fi shutdown, ultra shortcuts were fair game online. So what did this mean? I didn't play before the Wi-Fi shutdown, so take me with a grain of salt. But from what you could guess, it meant players could do stuff like this against 12 players at once, essentially just cheating the game. Seems pretty broken, huh? Well, not really. Two things to consider. #1, ultra shortcuts were not the biggest culprit of cheating online. #2, most people couldn't do the vast majority of ultra shortcuts anyway. Starting with #1, the biggest culprit for cheating online was hacking. Players would hack in countless items that they could spawn at will, fly around, change their VR to 35,000. It was chaos. But let me assure you that even though this looks as broken as it gets, it's not the game's fault. The Wii was notoriously easy to modify. The actual physical disc had nothing to do with hackers. It was all up to the Wii. So coming back to Mario Kart Wii, if you were to join an online lobby, it's less of a concern that someone will cheat by doing an ultra shortcut than it is seeing something like this. Moving on to the second point, most of the time when playing online, you won't have to worry about people doing ultra shortcuts. There are only 4 ultras that are easy enough to warrant going for in an online race, being Grumble Volcano, Mushroom Gorge, Warrior's Gold Mine, and Coconut Mall. That's 4 out of 32 tracks that even have a chance for someone to do an ultra shortcut. Assuming it's just your average player who knows about ultra shortcuts and has a mild amount of experience with them, let's look at some estimated odds that they can actually pull it off. Starting with the easiest, I'd give the Grumble Volcano Ultra Shortcut a 95% success rate. It's easiest for a reason. I gave it 95% instead of 100 because sometimes you might not make it onto the rock or miss the last key checkpoint. Not super common fails, but it could happen. Wario's Gold Mine, I'll give a 70% success rate. Still an easy glitch, but more often than you might think, the game just won't count the lap. It has to do with where you land on the pipe. Typically, landing inside the pipe yields a successful glitch, but there is the case where you think you've done it correctly, but lo and behold, you haven't. For Mushroom Gorge, I'll give it a 60% success rate, which might be a little generous. Out of the 3 mentioned so far, Mushroom Gorge glitch is the least consistent. It takes a little bit of practice, which we're assuming our fictional online glitch player has, but even then, it's finicky, especially on Flame Runner. Finally, for Coconut Mall, the most consistent glitch entry that I know of has about a 1 in 3 chance of making it on any given attempt. Allegedly. The method that I'm showing right now is what I'm talking about, but with practice, it's possible to bring those numbers up, so I'm going to give it a 40% chance of making it, assuming you don't mess up the glitch once you're out of bounds. When you take all of these odds into account, there's about an 8% chance that on any given race, someone will do an ultra shortcut. That's assuming that every time you play, there's someone else in the room who has experience with ultra shortcuts and is willing to go for one every single time. And when one person does one, all it means is that they're going to get first place and you still have a room full of people to race against. Unless other people go for it too. Keep in mind that failing any of these glitches means an enormous time loss for the person who failed the glitch, and they'll likely spend the rest of the race trying to catch back up. Back to that 8% number though. I'm not going to be the one to tell you if 8% is enough to consider this game being broken or not. You can decide that yourself. But remember, ever since the server shut down 10 years ago and were replaced with Wheelie, that number hasn't been 8%. It's been 0. Let's watch a couple clips of YouTubers with millions of subscribers describe their opinions on items in Mario Kart Wii.
Mario Kart Wii's items are out of control. Primarily, the blue shell appears far too frequently.
Your success in Mario Kart Wii is heavily dependent on what items you get, and that's it. Why play the game well when I can get a bullet bill or golden mushroom in lap 3 and take the lead?
You are constantly being bombarded with shit, and I don't think any other Mario Kart even compares to the number of...
It's understandable. None of their jobs are to have a nuanced opinion on Mario Kart Wii, but it's the effect of spreading this opinion around that has led players to think that they can blame items for losing. It's far too common how often you hear people complain about items in Mario Kart Wii, which is pretty fair. Items are designed to make races more volatile, there's luck involved, and it's easy to blame a bad race on item luck. But instead of turning off the game in rage, keep playing. Players who have played Mario Kart Wii enough know that item play is an important skill and is actually pretty controllable. Intel made a video that describes item theory, which I'd recommend watching if you aren't familiar, and in it he made a good analogy. Items turn Mario Kart Wii from Uno into poker. I guarantee you, the players who excel in this game aren't getting luckier than anyone else. They just know how to use items. Let's look over a few examples of item strategy in a race. Mini-map predictions for dodging the shock, knowing what rental items are being used, predicting backspam, trap spots, golden spots, target shocking and target powing. It can even be as simple as not cycling items in 4th place, or holding your shells behind you. Basically what I'm pointing out is, if you're in a situation where you think items aren't being helpful enough for you and are disfavorably against you, you're probably in a position that someone else has been in before, and there is a way to use items effectively to get out of it. So spare throwing your Wiimote across the room and don't blame the game for your loss. Also, blue shells aren't more common in this game than any other game. But Big Fry, little Timmy is saying, what about thunderclouds? Okay, you got me there. I saved the silliest little point for last. This doesn't need to be said because most people know it isn't true, but Funky Kong isn't broken. The reason everyone uses him is because he's the fastest, but it's only by a tiny margin. For reference, the speed difference between the Flame Runner and Mach Bike is about the same as the speed difference between Funky Kong Flame Runner and a character without a speed bonus. Not big. Nothing else needs to be said about this. Alright, that's what I got for these points that casual fans might be misled about. If you've made it to the end of the video and still think Mario Kart Wii is broken, that's because it is. I'm not denying that. But by making that claim, you're opening the door to assuming that just about any part of this game is broken or unbalanced, which in a lot of cases isn't true. Finally, I'd just like to clarify that this video was made for a casual audience. I'm sure dedicated MKWii players already know all or most of this stuff. Plus, at a high level of play, I can't say the vehicle roster is as balanced as regular online rooms, unfortunately. Stay safe, stay cute, stay loyal, cause I already know you are. And goodbye.